Hi, this is Stan Bush.
Hi, this is Stephanie Calvert.
This is John Payne.
This is Jack Hughes.
Hey everyone, this is BRITT Lightning from Vixen.
Hi, I'm Carrie Stevens.
Hello, I'm Kofi Baker.
And you're listening to Play That Rock and Roll with Joe K.
This is not a test. This is Play That Rock and Roll. I'm your host, Joe K, and today our guest is BRITT Lightning from Vixen. Vixen is one of the great hair metal bands of the late 80s and early 90s. They scored big hits back then with songs like Love Made Me and How Much Love, and of course their most famous one, Edge of a Broken Heart. I have been a fan of theirs for a long time, and I finally got to see them for the first time this past summer at Summerfest, and they were fantastic. I wanted to have BRITT on the show today because Vixen recently released a new single. The song is called Red, and it's got a new music video too. It looks great. Now, this song is the first new material from Vixen in quite a long time, and it is supposed to be part of a new album from Vixen, which hopefully we'll see a release date sometime in 2024. That would be the first new Vixen album in like almost 20 years. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to talk to BRITT about what Vixen has coming up and also about her time in the band. BRITT joined Vixen back in 2017, and although that might not sound like a very long time ago, she has taken a very relevant role in the band. To me, she's the MVP of the group. Her guitar solos are absolutely awesome. She has a ton of energy on stage. But that's not to say she outshines the rest of the band. Vixen is a really good live act. Like I said, I saw them this summer, and it was one of the best shows I saw all year. So I was really happy to see that they had a new single out just a couple of weeks ago, because now that I know that they're a fantastic live band, I'm really interested in seeing what this new lineup can put together on a record. There's a lot of creative energy in this band, and I guess they've been working on trying to put together an album for some time now. Unfortunately, you know, the pandemic threw a wrench into the works for that, as it threw a wrench into the works for just about everything. But there's reason to be hopeful that even more new music from Vixen will be on its way soon. So in this conversation, BRITT told me about the music that really inspired her growing up, how she got into the music industry, how she got the Vixen gig, and what it's been like playing with this current lineup of the band, and also about some of the new music that they're hoping to release in 2024. So you can find BRITT Lightning on Facebook and Instagram. You can find Vixen, the band, on pretty much all social media platforms. And you should definitely check out their new single. It's called Red. There's a new music video for it. It looks fantastic. And when they announce some dates for 2024, if they come to your town, this is a band you do not want to miss. An absolutely great live show. One of my favorites I saw this year. And if you like that era of late 80s, early 90s hair metal, there's very few bands from that era that are still performing at the same level that Vixen is now. So I think you definitely want to go check them out if they come to town. So with that, I just want to say thank you to BRITT for coming on the show. It was awesome talking to her. I hope she'll come back, especially if there's new Vixen music to talk about later down the line. So without further ado, here's my conversation with the lead guitarist of Vixen, BRITT Lightning. BRITT, thank you for coming by. I saw Vixen play this year. I saw you all at Summerfest in Milwaukee. Show was outstanding. You played with alongside Steven Adler, played that day. I think Queensryche was that night. In my opinion, you stole the show for sure. Do you remember playing that gig, or is this summer all kind of a
No, I didn't get that drunk this summer. But I do remember that gig because I love Summerfest. We've done it quite a few times. Yeah, it's always a great festival, great lineup, and it's a diverse festival. They've got all sorts of music there on all different stages, so we love it there.
Absolutely. Yes, that is a big, that's the pride of Milwaukee as far as I'm concerned as a music fan. One of the things I noticed about that show is that besides all the great Vixen music, I couldn't help but notice there was some Van Halen music mixed in there. Your cover of Ain't Talking About Love was awesome, and I noticed the little guitar cues here and there, which I thought was fantastic. Is that all by design as like a tribute and celebration of Eddie, or is that more just it's too much fun not to play?
A little bit of both. Well, Eddie's my favorite. He's the reason I picked up guitar to begin with. So always love to do a little nod to him. And, we do like to sometimes throw a cover into the set, towards the end of it if we have time. So, Van Halen's one thing everybody can agree on in the band, Roxy likes a lot of heavy stuff, Lorraine likes this, but everybody likes Van Halen, and never trust anybody that doesn't. That's all I know.
Strongly agree. Okay, obligatory. I'll bring up the one controversial part of Van Halen. Obligatory, stupid. Sammy versus Dave.
Oh man, well I love them both, but Dave.
Yeah, that's kind of the right answer. Although no shade to Sammy, right?
No, totally different band with Sammy.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Eddie for just a little bit. I mean, you said he's your favorite. He's obviously a huge inspiration, and his legacy is shown through your playing. What about him makes him so special to you? What was it about his playing that made you want to learn how to play guitar and get into the music scene?
Well, when I first heard Eruption in a store when I was shopping with my mom, I didn't even know it was a guitar. It just blew my mind. I didn't really listen to a lot of rock and roll. I didn't have any, older siblings that introduced me to rock and roll. My parents weren't super into music. So I listened to like 90s hip hop and stuff like that. And I didn't, I wasn't into the grunge rock that was popular when I was growing up in the 90s, like Nirvana and stuff. It just didn't do it for me. So I wasn't inspired to play guitar until I heard Eruption. And I asked somebody in the store what it was that I was hearing, because I didn't even, my mom didn't know. And they said, oh, that's Van Halen. And so that day after we finished running errands, I said, Mom, you owe it to me to bring me to the Newbury Comics, the record store down the street. And so I bought Van Halen 1 in 1984. And that's when I just decided, oh, I've got to play guitar. That was it. So yeah, big inspiration.
Oh, for sure. That's so cool. Yeah, you wouldn't know by looking at us, but you and I are about the same age, and I wonder if you had a similar experience to me growing up with the music that I love. I think is what you love too, is that classic rock era, which Van Halen is such a big part of. Did that kind of put you out of step with, like, I don't know, your classmates or your friends, or were you also very much into the contemporary music that was around when we were younger?
No, I wasn't into contemporary music except for Metallica. That was big at the time. So I really got into playing Metallica. That's what me and my friends all kind of bonded over. But I was really the hairband lover in our group of friends, like, having the Motley Crue shirts and all that. So yeah, but all hard rock, all great solos. That's what inspired me to play, Dimebag, Kirk Hammett, all those guys, Marty Friedman, Dave Mustaine, all that stuff inspired me as well.
Oh, okay. So a lot of the metal guys. I mean, were there guitarists from like different eras that maybe didn't inspire you back then, but as you got older and developed your craft, that you found inspiration from?
Definitely. Later on, I really appreciated Jimi Hendrix, who's the best.
Oh, happy birthday to him today.
Oh, yeah, good point. Okay. All right. Happy birthday, Jimmy. Rest in peace. Yeah. But David Gilmour, Santana, Jimmy Page, Slash. Slash I didn't appreciate till later either. For some reason, even though I loved Guns N' Roses, I didn't really care to learn any of his. I mean, of course, I learned "Sweet Child of Mine" intro right off the bat, but other than that, I didn't really care about learning any of his solos per se. But the thing that really drew me into Eddie was his swing. I was just actually talking about this to somebody else, and I feel like Warren DeMartini has it too. Another one of my favorites. They just have this kind of this swing. It's not always on the one, and they've got this groove that is just so cool and so smooth.
Absolutely. When you had that initial inspiration, when you were still a kid, like what, and you decided you wanted to get into basically the music industry, like how did you set about accomplishing those goals? Like what were your first steps into the music industry?
I just decided I had to be in a band and be a rock star. I just decided at 15, like, this is what I want to do. So I started jamming with, kids in my school and stuff. And I started a coffee house. So uh, once a month, we would open up the school cafeteria at like 7 p.m. and have a little jam. So we started doing that. So I had my high school band, and we would rehearse in my parents' living room. They were pretty cool about it. I gotta say, very lucky there. They were always supportive. I think they were just happy I wasn't doing drugs or stealing things. And, I was home in their house making a lot of noise, but, could be worse.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
and yeah, and then, I actually got my first, touring, I guess you could say touring gig. I was, I had gotten to the point where I decided that I needed a half stack for my bedroom, that the practice amp just wasn't enough. I needed a full half stack, to rock out in front of my mirror. And so I was testing out heads at one of the local music stores, and the store manager heard me, and I was just playing Metallica, because that's kind of played Metallica and Van Halen all day, every day. And he was like, hey, my band kind of sounds like Metallica, and we just lost our guitar player, and we're going on tour next week. We have a 2-week tour, DIY van style. Do you want to be in the band? And I was just like, yep. Like, I didn't ask any questions, didn't matter. I was just like, yep, I want to go on tour. So went home and told my parents that I was going on tour, and they were like, you can't, you're in high school. Like, what do you can't just go on tour. And I was like, no, I'm going to get my homework in advance. I'm going to do all the homework. I'm not going to miss a thing. And, somehow they let me go. They met these guys. They were all in their mid-20s, and they were like, so what goes on this tour? What are you doing? Where are you going? But then we went as far as Baltimore. I was based out of Massachusetts by Boston.
Oh, okay.
Went as far as Baltimore, and it was on that tour that I was just like, I need to do this for sure. Like, it just validated everything I already knew that I would love about rock and roll. Just the being able to play music out to strangers. And that really made me think it was possible too, because of course your friends and your family are going to say, oh, you're great, but you don't really know in the real world, am I great? So playing in front of strangers that didn't owe me anything, saying that it was good, I was like, okay, maybe I can do this. And that combined with that sense of freedom and being on the road and adventure and traveling to different places, meeting new people, I was just like, this is definitely the path I want for my life.
Wow. Okay. So like that road lifestyle appealed to you at a pretty young age. I mean, these years later, is that still the truth for you now, or is it more of a challenge?
It's still the truth. I love being on the go. I love traveling. I mean, this past summer we were out almost the entire summer straight. And, at times I said, oh, I can't wait to get back home and just chill and have a chill night. But as soon as I get back home, I'm looking up road trips and booking a trip because I can't sit still. So, I like to be on the road. I like to be on the go. Aside from playing music, I really just love meeting new people and bonding over the, mutual love of music. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can tell. There's an enthusiasm that I saw with your band that you don't necessarily see with other live shows. Like, sometimes you can tell when artists don't really enjoy, and it's kind of a slog. But not with Vixen. There was a lot of great energy in that show. So pivoting to Vixen, you joined them in 2017. How did that gig come together?
So I had moved to LA recently from Boston after a tour finished that I was on. And I had come home to Boston in the middle of a snowstorm. And I was like, I'm over this. I'm over this weather. I don't know why I'm here. It's time to go to LA. So I moved out to LA. And I just started doing the jams around town there, and joined a Guns N' Roses tribute band, and just started playing around. And Vixen's manager saw me, but they were also, had been asking around kind of on the down low, and I had been referred a couple times by different people. So I think they kept hearing my name pop up again and again. And then they invited me down to Florida for an audition, and the rest is history.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you're one of the veterans.
I am. Now I'm second longest member. Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's terrific. So Vixen has that great discography in the late 80s and early 90s. Were they one of those bands that, as a kid that you got into, or was that something you discovered later as you got into the industry?
I was into them because, like I said, I was really inspired by the 80s hair bands and stuff in high school when I started playing guitar. And I really was looking for a female role model, and I loved Lita.
Oh yeah.
And that was cool. And then I wasn't really into the Runaways at the time. That was kind of more 70s. Joan Jett was a little too punky for me. I didn't really like that. So it was really Lita and then Vixen. And I had grown up watching Gem and the Holograms. And when I discovered Vixen, I was like, oh my God, like Gem and the Holograms are real. Like they were really, I thought they were like the same thing. It really personified them well. And I always just enjoyed playing with female musicians. So my younger sister, played drums. So I always jammed with her. I had a great friend in high school, my best friend, she played bass. So I really just always wanted to have a female band. And I just liked the idea. I always read these books about, Motley Crue and Aerosmith and Guns N' Roses, these guy gangs, and I just wanted a girl gang, like the Pink Ladies, but rock and roll, like real rock and roll. And so the first band that I started was called Jaded, and that was an all-female rock band. Throughout the years, I've played in a lot of female based projects, and which kind of is foreshadowing, and now Vixen, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you bring that up, and it makes me wonder. I've had a lot of conversations with female artists and authors on this show over the years, and unfortunately, when you're looking back on the classic rock era, one consistent challenge that they all faced was sexism from the industry, and Vixen, obviously, in the heyday, was no stranger to that. Since you've joined, or since you've gotten into the music industry, I'm sure there's still some of that, around, unfortunately, but how would you say, you've navigated those challenges, and is sexism institutionally still a big problem for the music industry, or have you seen progress in the time you've been working there?
I mean, I've definitely seen more women in bands now, more girls playing guitar, especially since COVID. A lot of people picked it up, and social media, because you have the exposure to see other women can do it. And that gives hope to, young girls doing it. They didn't know girls could play guitar, until they see certain reels and things like that online. So I think it's still there, and it's still, a lot of guys still, for some reason, think girls don't know what they're doing. And I don't know what that's all about, but it doesn't bother me. If a guy says, oh, wow, look at all those pedals. Do you even know how to set them up? Or can you even carry those? No, I can't. Go for it. Yeah. Set it up for me. Sure. Like I will use that to my advantage all day long. Sure.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. You can pick up that amp. Sure. No problem. But I if anything, it kind of makes it fun, because then you can just prove them wrong, and that's always a fun challenge.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And I think you do. So, okay, going back to Vixen here. So when, they were a favorite band of yours when you were a kid, now that you're in the band, were the songs that you loved as a kid the ones you most love playing today? Or, what are some of the songs that you really enjoy playing on stage today?
Yeah, I love How Much Love, because that's just a fun riff to play. And then we kind of do a little jam in the middle, and we extend the outro. So that's kind of like a free form at the end. And so I enjoy that. Of course, I had learned Edge of a Broken Heart back in the day, and that one never gets old, because that's just so fun and everybody sings along. I love playing Crying. That's always one that's always stuck in my head. And Rev It Up is always a great, we usually open with that, and I like that, and we do little improv sections in that. Rock Me is a cool song. We do a breakdown in that as well, and we add in a bunch of covers lately in that. So we've been getting to the solo section, and we do a breakdown, crowd interaction, and we've gone into some Rush and Van Halen and Sabbath and Whitesnake. So that's always
you guys play Rush? Oh, part like in the solos?
A little bit. We do a little bit of oh my God. Wait, you might have to edit this out. Is the song called What You're Doing? Is that the song? What You're Doing. Okay, I'm right.
Rush, yeah, you were right. Yeah.
Yeah, we do a little bit of War Pigs. We do a little bit of Still of the Night, a little bit of what else? What else do we do? Running with the Devil.
Oh, so yeah. I remember hearing Still of the Night at the Summerfest show, and that was very cool.
Yeah.
and I'm not afraid to say it. I saw Whitesnake at Summerfest a couple years before, and you guys were way better. So,
all right, I'll take it.
What songs that you typically play would you say are the most challenging, or are they all back of your hand at this point?
Sometimes, no, they're all fun. Sometimes when so we I just want to say we don't play to any clicks, backing track, nothing, so everything is just live, all our backing vocals and stuff. Sometimes we get a little amped up and we play everything a little bit fast, and sometimes cruising can be real fast, and it's like, oh man. So sometimes that happens. Oh, we just added that song Hellraisers into the mix too, and I really like that one. We just started playing that this summer, and that's got a really cool groove. It's kind of heavy, so I really like that one too. But
well, I'm guessing some of the songs from the new record might pose a little bit of a challenge because maybe those aren't as road tested. I'm going to ask you about that in a second. How do you guys build a set list?
We kind of have one that we always start with, and then we think like, well, how can we make this a little more fun, or let's just change things around. So we kind of start with the basic one that's like the steady one we always go to, and then just make a little tweaks here and there.
Okay. Since you've been with Vixen specifically, or if there's one that stands out previous to your time in Vixen, what would you say of all the gigs you've played? Are there any that are truly over the top as far as great memories for you or most meaningful? What are some of the best gigs that you've played?
Yeah, I have to say this summer we did the Wacken Festival in Germany, and that has been on my bucket list since I was 15, since the day I picked up the guitar, and to be able to finally play that was amazing. It was just crazy. We were on that big stage. It was muddy and packed, and people were just, going crazy. Yeah, Lorraine stage diving, and just huge crowds. I don't know how many thousands of people, but a lot. And that was really epic. I enjoyed that a lot, and I love going overseas because people don't see you as often, or you're not as accessible over there, and so they're really excited to see you. Really great fans over there. And then right after that, we played a festival in Sweden, which was also awesome, in this beautiful little town. So those were both two great back-to-back festivals that really stood out for me this summer.
Yeah, because Vixen has a pretty strong international fan base, right? It's not just the U.S. I mean, do you have a big following in Japan as well?
Yeah, although you know what, we haven't been there, so that's on the to-do list for sure. I'm dying to get over there with the band because I know there's a lot of fans. We get a lot of messages from people over there.
Oh, absolutely, very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Then what's the flip side of that? Not necessarily like a bad gig, but do you have any funny horror stories of the road, or any gigs gone wrong or anything like that you can think of?
Yeah, one scary gig that just comes to mind. So we've got that live record, Live Fire, that we recorded in it came out in 2018. I feel like we recorded it though in 2017, at the end of 2017, because I had just kind of joined the band, and then I felt like we went right into recording this live record, and we did that at the Arcata Theater in St. Charles, Illinois, one of my favorite venues. Love that place, beautiful old theater, and we were playing with Slaughter that night, but we were going on first, and they were going to record it for the live record, and I remember the gear truck broke down, and we were using the same backline as Slaughter, and so it didn't show up on time for a sound check. And, it was really frightening to do a live record without that. And I think I had some pedals that were there too. And so I didn't have my pedals. So I ended up using Jeff Lando's pedals, and the gear got there in the nick of time for the show to start, but there was no sound check, no nothing. And a couple of those songs I hadn't played live with the band. I think the first time I ever played Love Is a Killer was at that show. And we didn't rehearse it. We didn't rehearse some live endings, like extended live endings. I think I had only been playing like 30, 45-minute sets with the band. And then this was, the full album. So I remember, and how much love we did that extended outro, and I didn't know how long to go. I wasn't sure who was giving the cue and all these things. So the fact that we didn't get a sound check to go over all that really freaked me out. So I was very nervous for that. I think it worked out well in the end. I liked that record. So everybody was happy with it. So it worked out, but that was pretty frightening.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That is a strong live album. I listened to that earlier this year. I really enjoyed it. But it brings another Van Halen reference to my head. The phrase "live without a net."
Right. Exactly. just go.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I'll have to give that a re-listen and see how it sounds, but I'm sure it's great. So that's very fun. Okay, well, let's talk about why I initially wanted to have you on. I saw that Vixen has a new single out, and there's news that there's going to finally be a new Vixen album next year, right?
I hope so. I hope so. We've got ideas in the works. Right now we're just kind of focusing on putting out singles,
Okay.
but we hope that eventually all those singles will come together and we'll release a full album.
Okay. So let's talk about the single Red that you put together. Is that something, tell me about the collaborative process of making the song itself. I mean, who writes it, and how do you all work together in the studio, because this is going to be the first studio project that you're a part of.
Correct. Well, kind of. We did on that Live Fire record. We worked with Michael Wagner. We went in the studio and we did record 2 studio tracks. We did an acoustic version of Edge of a Broken Heart, and then we did a song called You Ought to Know, which was actually an older song that Vixen had back in the day, but it was never officially recorded.
Oh, I didn't know that was a from the archives. Okay, they're very cool.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, this was cool. We worked with Fred Corey on this, and this one though we weren't all together in the studio. We all went in separately. Roxy's in Detroit, and then Lorraine is up in Palm Springs, and then Julia and I are in LA. But we both went into the studio separately and just recorded our tracks. So I hope the next one we can all be together, because it's a different vibe when you're all in there together. But I think the energy was still captured really well on Red.
Oh yeah, no, there was a lot of energy on that track, and it's a fun music video too. So, do you have other singles recorded, or is that still a work in progress?
It's still a work in progress. We got a lot of ideas floating around. It's just, deciding which direction we want to go in, if we were going to do another ballad or, so in the works.
Okay. Well, that hey, one new single is much better than no new singles. So
yeah,
that's good news. Okay, what are some of the things you like about the studio that you don't necessarily get to enjoy on stage? Is there a difference, as far as working with the engineers in the studio and playing on stage? What are the dynamics that you like about the studio?
Well, I love being in the studio because of the freedom to try anything, different sounds, different amps, different guitars, and just getting creative. I mean, the weirder things you can come up with, the cooler sometimes, like, I remember with Michael Wagner, he was like, oh, here's a razor blade. Why don't you make some noise with this and tap this on the pickups, or we were just playing with toys, anything that we saw in the studio, just for fun. And when you're not on a big time crunch, it's good that you can have that freedom to explore. But then, with the live stuff, it's just like, get ready and go. But I improv less live than I do in the studio, because the studio, you can fix anything you want. So, and you can try things over and over. So, I don't know. I like them both, but obviously the live energy is more fun than sitting in the studio. Sometimes you just sit in a studio for hours and hours, and then you leave and it's dark outside and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I was just sitting in one place for that long.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I don't know how record engineers do it. Just do that day in and day out. I couldn't do that, but I really love the creative process of being in the studio, but especially being in the studio with the full band all together, because that's really when the fun happens, the magic happens.
I've heard that you have set a goal that you want to record a solo album at some point. Talk to me about songwriting. Is your songwriting gonna be a part of the upcoming Vixen releases? Are they collaborations, or do you have material prepped for a solo project?
Well, I hope so. I enjoy writing. I collaborated a lot with Lorraine because she lives close to me. Came up with some ideas with Julia, and then I'll record things randomly and send them back and forth to Roxy, or she'll come up with a beat, and so we send a lot back and forth. So it's always pretty collaborative. One of my favorite things when we were all in a rehearsal space together once, Roxy said, everybody just don't bring in any ideas that you had from the past. I'm going to play a beat and everybody just jump in. And I like doing stuff like that because it's really in the moment and real, and not overthought, because it's just whatever happens. And then we kind of take it from there. So I like when we write stuff like that. And but yeah, I have some ideas that are not really Vixen that I would like to get out there. So yeah, I hope to. I know I've been saying it for a couple of years now, but I really hope. I think this is the year that I'm definitely going to put something new out. So I'm excited about that.
Oh, excellent, excellent! I can't wait to hear that. And I like what you said. Overthought. I bet that's a challenge that a lot of recording artists, kind of forget about. Is if it's they're dwelling on it for too long. But okay, well, let's talk about before we get out of here. The show I saw this summer, was just so great. And Vixen is a band with a long history and a lot of great alumni through it. But as we said earlier, you joined in 2017, but you're the second most tenured member. Roxy's the OG, then you. Lorraine joins in 2019, and Julia joined just last year. But you wouldn't guess it by seeing you guys play on stage because there's such great chemistry and the energy is up. Can you talk about specifically this group, the dynamic that this group has that makes touring so much fun for you and playing together? Why does this combination of Vixen work so well?
Yeah, well, Julie and I have been friends for a long time. I met her when I first moved to LA, and we've worked on projects together in the past. So we always had great chemistry. And then when I met Lorraine, I just felt like I had known her for forever. We just clicked immediately and really, I mean, we speak definitely every day, all day, every day, pretty much. And then Roxy, of course, who I had known the longest. Well, I knew Julia longer, but had been playing with Roxy, and this lineup, all the lineups have been amazing. I mean, and I love Cher and Janet, and still keep in touch with everybody. The beautiful thing about Vixen is we've always all gotten along. Ever since I've been in the band, like as far as I know, we all really enjoy each other, respect each other, and and like spending time and hearing about each other's lives and stuff. So it's not just like we're on stage, let's get along and get through this. It's never like that.
Right.
In this particular lineup, like I said, before it's been spread out, like Cher lived in Florida, Janet was in Connecticut, Roxy was in Detroit, but now at least three of us now are in LA. So we have a little bit more time to bond and really gel together and get to know each other. And I think that comes across a lot on stage. And I love Lorraine's energy on stage. She's like our David Lee Roth. And like I said, I don't think any guys even jumped out on stage at Wacken and crowd surfed. She's just a badass. And the whole band is all badass. Everybody's so good at their instruments and so much fun, and we truly have a love for each other, so that's why it makes it so easy.
Yeah, that really shows through, and that's what makes it such a fun. And I can't wait to see you all play again. So congratulations on the new single. I'm so encouraged and excited for the new singles you're going to have later this year, mostly because since you've been in Vixen, like I said earlier, primarily a live act, but there's a lot of us fans who are really interested in hearing your creative input. We want to hear what you can create instead of playing parts that were written before. This leads to another question. Because so much of Vixen's discography was recorded before you ever joined the band, how do you thread that needle of playing the music that in a way that's faithful to the records, but also making it a BRITT Lightning solo? How do you make established music your own?
Well, I learned early on, I'm never going to sound just like Jimi Hendrix. I'm never going to sound just like, any of these great people that I look up to. I'll never be Eddie Van Halen exactly. So I learned to embrace my things that make me. And, you play to your strengths, and that's all you can do. So I'm not going to play everything exactly like Janet. I definitely know the key hooks and phrases and things that I have to make sure that I stick with, so that it has the integrity that she, put down initially. But I do make it my own. If she does this lick legato, but I'm better at picking it, I'll pick it, I just put my own techniques, my own natural way of playing, over it. And then I do take liberties when we do improv sections to just kind of make it my own. And I think, I try to keep true, a good tone. But it's not exactly like Jan's, but, so, and I play a different guitar than she did. So there's all these, very little nuancy things that make things different. But I think as long as you get the main concept, but adding your own embellishments, I think is cool, because, anybody can just listen to the record and have it sound just like that. That's why I love going to live shows, because, I love when they don't play things just like the record. They add elements to make it exciting and new for longtime listeners.
Absolutely. That is exactly why I enjoy concerts myself. I go to, dozens of concerts every year, and not to say that I dislike artists that play it really safe and really close to the record, but it's always more fun when you see that artists being a little more original with familiar work. So I appreciate how you play with that. Last thing before we get out of here, I saw that you are nominated for an award, and you're going to be honored next year at the She Rocks Awards for your work with the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp. Is that right?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm very excited about that. That was unexpected, but that's going to be a really fun event at the NAMM show in January 25th. And there's so many amazing artists that are going to be honored along with me. So I'm so grateful to be in the mix with all of them.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Is that part of is that due to your work over the COVID pandemic, that had to do with you did can you talk a little bit about, you did just a huge amount. I remember seeing this stuff on Facebook too. You were doing Zoom sessions. You had these other rock stars coming in. Can you talk a little bit about your work in that era? Because you are someone I think of who made the most out of a really challenging time for the whole music industry.
Oh, thanks. Well, yeah. So, I had just started working with Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp in 2019. And, I was a counselor at the camps, but then started working closely with David Fishoff, the founder, and, working to plan new camps and come up with new ideas and take it to the next level. And then boom, COVID hit. And, so it was like a weekend. And once we saw that it wasn't really going away, we are like, okay, we got to think of something to keep this brand alive and to keep us motivated and inspired and not lose hope. And so I started hosting these online masterclasses. I did almost 200. I was doing them a lot, and some of them we did multiple ones in a day, and it was really fun. I think I worked harder during COVID than I do now, but it was a lot of work, but it was fun. And I got to say too, I ended up networking with more people, meeting more people during COVID than I do in my daily life, because people were home, they were available, and nobody was busy. Nobody had plans. I mean, we're all sitting around doing things. And so we started doing these master classes where, we'd just talk to artists, and I'd interview them a bit, and we'd have people come on and ask them questions. And it was so different than like a typical meet and greet or something, where you just, quickly take a picture and sign something and you're shuffled out. I mean, we were online with these people for over an hour. It was kind of just like sitting in the living room with them and talking real time, live. Everything was live. Nothing was pre-recorded. And it was interesting to talk to these artists and get their take on what was going on in the world. I mean, I remember Roger Daltrey saying, I don't know if I'll ever step on a stage again. I have no idea. Everything was so uncertain. And it was cool too, because the artists weren't promoting a certain record or tour. It was just them being real and real talk. And we talked about everything, not just music, like life stuff. And it was just fascinating. And, David and I talked about releasing a book, with everything we learned from all the rock stars during COVID, just because we got so much great information. But we had, like I said, people from Roger Daltrey, Joe Elliott. We had managers like Shep Gordon. We had Alice Cooper too. We had agents. We had Jason Flom, president of Lava Records. So we had all sorts of people come in and just share their wisdom and give us all hope, and share ideas about how we were going to get through it all.
Absolutely. And that was a time where especially musicians needed some positivity, because I know that was a really challenging time. I talked to a lot of touring musicians, over that stretch, and, some of them are really hurting. So I love that. That is so cool. And I know that Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp is making a lot of, people's dreams come true, and so cool to see that stuff. So I just want to say thank you so much for your time. It has been an absolute blast meeting you. It was so much fun seeing Vixen play this summer. I can't wait to see you again. And I can't wait to hear the new music that's coming in 2024. When the album does drop, I hope you'll come back and visit us again.
Absolutely. I enjoyed talking to you, and yes, can't wait to return back to Milwaukee. And looking forward to all of it. 2024, it's going to be a good year for everybody.
All right, hell yeah. One last thing before we go. This is going to be released a couple weeks before Christmas. I don't know if you like Christmas music or not, but give us a great Christmas song recommendation for the holidays. What's a good song for a Christmas playlist?
I mean, definitely Keith Richards, Run Run Rudolph.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Britt. This has been a real joy. Best wishes to you for next year, and have a great holiday.
Thank you. Same to you. Enjoyed talking with you.
Okay. Hey, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember the big 4 things you can do to support this show that don't cost a dime. Number 1, listen to the show. If you're hearing this now, that means you did this part already. Thank you. There is an infinite amount of content out there, so you choosing to spend some time listening to this show means a great deal to me. Number 2, if you like what we did here, please recommend this show to family, friends, or anyone you know who's looking for a podcast, particularly about music. Share our links in Facebook groups, subreddits, and recommendation threads. Whatever you can do is highly appreciated on my end. Number 3, find us on social media. Follow us on Twitter at PlayThatPodcast. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/playthatpodcast. And subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/c/playthatrock'n'roll. Lots of great material like photos and vlogs on all 3 platforms, as Play That Rock and Roll is very much meant to be a content hub as well as a podcast. And finally, the big ask. Number 4, please give us a 5-star rating and a positive review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. I know this part is a hassle, but it really does help the show a great deal. Not just because it affects the algorithm, but also because it gives me something I can point to when pitching this show to potential guests. The more social media followers and positive ratings the show has, the better chance I have for booking high-profile guests for interviews. So if you take a moment to give us even just a 5-star rating, you are actively giving us a tool to do bigger, better things here. But whatever the case, I appreciate any and all efforts you take to support us here at Play That Rock and Roll. Be sure to join us next time for more great stories and music from the world of classic rock.